YouTube's brand new analytics, impressions and click-through rate are finally available to the public. So let's take a closer look and see what they mean for you.
vidIQ.
vidIQ.
vidIQ.com.
So, YouTube impressions and click-through rate. Where do you find that? I'm glad you asked, as we're going to go into a lot of detail about those metrics right now. The place you want to start is the Creator Studio page. It could be any one of these pages. I'm on the dashboard, but hopefully with all of these options down the left-hand side, if you scroll down to the bottom of this list, you will find this YouTube Studio Beta button. This has been around now for at least 12 months, and if you have had access to it, then you've seen this new analytical layout. Very polarizing opinions on this current display, and presumably YouTube at some point will transition to this for all users. When that will happen, we don't know as of now. But once you're on this new Studio Beta analytical page, you want to click on Analytics on the left-hand side here, and there should be a tab at the top here called Discovery. And this is where you will find a new pane, which is impressions and click-through rate. Now, this metric is displayed in a funnel style, whereby one thing leads to another. In this case, it's 1.3 million impressions has resulted in a 2.8% click-through rate, which has partially resulted in 141,000 views, and we'll get onto why that's partially in a little while. And those views have resulted in 215,000 minutes of watch time over the last, at this point, 27 days. None of these metrics are clickable, so you can't drill down any further at this point, but we will show you a more granular look at the impressions and click-through rate later on. But you do have these information bars here, which you can mouse over for more information, and the question marks here will bring up pop-ups where you can click on Learn More to get helpful information on the right-hand side here. And although I did say that you can't click on the impressions panel anywhere for more metrics, there is a teaser graphic in the help section here under See Your Impressions and Click-Through Rate Data. If you expand that, you can just see here that there looks to be graphs over time of how your impressions rate and click-through rate changes over time. Maybe we'll see them in a month's time once we have 28 days data worth of information to display. Let's dig deeper into what these metrics actually mean then. Here at vidIQ, over the last 27 days, we have 1.3 million impressions. And to explain what an impression is how many times your video thumbnail has been shown on YouTube. And you have to think of an impression as your potential reach on YouTube and an opportunity to earn a view. An impression is counted every time a video thumbnail is shown to someone on the platform, but it's important to note that not every instance of when a potential viewer sees a video thumbnail will actually count as an impression. So this may be seen as the minimum number of times your thumbnail has been seen on YouTube, and that would be 1.3 million. In cases where impressions are counted, YouTube count the impression when they can detect that your thumbnail was visible to a user. And that means that the user must have been able to see at least 50% of that thumbnail. There's also a whole list of extended reasons why your impressions may not be registered, and if you go to the help section, they're listed here. As an example, external websites and apps that have your YouTube video embedded, those don't count as impressions. The YouTube mobile website, videos on platforms such as YouTube TV and YouTube Kids, gaming apps, content within the video player, so if somebody clicks on one of a video cards which then takes you to one of your videos, that's not counted as an impression. Videos and emails, push notifications. So the list is pretty extensive, and there's all sorts of reasons why your impressions won't be counted. The list for when your impressions are registered is a lot smaller. So typically you're looking at the search results. A lot of times when your videos are found and the thumbnails are shown there and people click on those videos, that's prime real estate where impressions will get you click-throughs. Also, the YouTube subscription feeds and trending page and history, watch later, those pages where you have the content being put upon you, or you're trying to find it through your own preferences. And the up next recommendations on the right hand side of the video player also are counted, and videos in playlists. As for the impressions metric itself, it's split into two categories. If you mouse over the information bar here, YouTube will tell you when it's trying to push content onto a viewer as opposed to the viewer trying to find your content. So the orange bar represents YouTube's promotion in a sense. It's 34% here, so that's when our videos have appeared on a homepage or a recommended in a watch page as perhaps a suggested video. 66% of our audience is trying to find our content. Now that can be through a number of places, and that includes YouTube search pages, subscriber feeds, and other places where viewers are looking for our content. So it's important to distinguish how much YouTube is helping you with your content. If there is more recommendation coming from YouTube, then that means the algorithm has deemed that your content was successful perhaps within your own niche, your own audience who currently watches your content and is trying to promote it to a new audience. So the more of an orange bar there is, the more that YouTube is helping you as a video creator. Now let's move on to click-through rates, which is 2.8% of the 1.3 million impressions. Now, if you do the maths, you will quickly realize that 2.8% of 1.3 million is not 141,000 views, and that's because, as we've said earlier, these impressions are not all of your potential views on YouTube. It's a subset. For example, if a view comes from an external website, it's not registered at all in impressions. So don't try and link these two metrics together as much as you might want to. As for average click-through rates, YouTube suggests that half of channels will get an impression rate of between 2 and 10%. If it's outside of those ranges, that may be because the video isn't very old at the moment. It has maybe only a couple of hundred views, and YouTube's not had a chance to properly surface the content out into YouTube, and therefore you may have a very high click-through rate. Or if YouTube decides that your video is doing very well and then starts to share it to all sorts of people, maybe it appears on the trending page of YouTube, and you as a viewer are not particularly interested in that content, that could actually lower the click-through rate. So you don't want to necessarily always attach success to a click-through rate. It could be, as Hank Green said in our recent interview with him, when the video is shared more, click-through rate will go down because there's a wider audience who potentially don't want to see it, but it's reaching a much wider audience. Let's now move on to the question of why watch time is in this funnel. With this metric, we have to work forwards and then work backwards. Let's try and explain what I mean there. YouTube has given vidIQ 1.3 million impressions. We have a 3% click-through rate and total views of 141,000 views, which has resulted in the watch time here of 215,000 minutes with an average view duration of 1.5 minutes or 20%. Now, YouTube is looking very closely at this metric. If you have a high degree of watch time and audience view duration, that means you're producing content that's keeping viewers on YouTube, and YouTube is most likely going to share this content with a new audience. So in a perfect YouTube world, what should happen is that if you can increase your average view duration, that's going to increase your impressions, especially the yellow or orange bar here, because YouTube's going to recommend it on more home pages and more watch pages. So that's where you come in to produce better content that keeps the audience engaged. So don't try and look at any of these metrics individually or in the short term. This is very much a long-term game. If you can improve watch time, which is completely in your control, then that means YouTube indirectly is going to share this content to more viewers. And if you can produce good thumbnails, which aren't clickbaity thumbnails, that means that the viewers are going to come in and watch your content. For example, if you have really good clickbaity thumbnails, which give you a high click-through rate, but then the content doesn't reflect that thumbnail, then you're going to have a low watch time. So having high click-through rate with low watch time is not necessarily a good thing. So try and think of all these three metrics combined over a longer period of time. Now, I did say earlier on that we can go more granular with these new metrics, and it's a good opportunity to do that because these metrics here don't necessarily represent vidIQ in the greatest light, because there's a fairly low click-through rate and fairly low average view duration, and that's because we have some tutorial videos on our site that we push to users externally from YouTube and don't have the greatest watch time. So we want to look at specific YouTube content here to see where it does perform better. And to do that, if I click on videos, and I'm going to choose one of our more popular videos here to just have a look at how our metric can be a lot different. We'll choose the how to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube video, go to discovery, and here you can see a much better metric of where we've done a really good job of having a video that's been shared quite a lot on YouTube. The view duration is 30%. It's a lot higher than the channel average. At 2 minutes, we have a higher click-through rate than average, presumably because this is an enticing thumbnail which does deliver on its content. And you can see here a massive shift in the shareability of this video through YouTube, and it's been shown a lot more on recommended watch pages. So that's brilliant for us. It means that it's attaching itself to similar content and people must be clicking on this video to watch it. So if you want to look at how specific videos are performing, and you could even potentially do some A/B testing here with using different thumbnails to see how you can change the impressions and click-through rate, then certainly look at videos on an individual basis and look at the impressions and click-through rate. And that's your deep dive into impressions and click-through rate. So over to you. What have you discovered with these new metrics? Is YouTube pushing content your way? How is your click-through rate? Do you need to improve your audience retention rate? Let us know in the comments below, and also give us feedback on this new video style. We decided to experiment with a little more in-depth content, so we really want to know if you do appreciate this style of format. Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for a lot more content just like this at vidIQ. Enjoy the rest of your video making day. Bye for now.